Hello, everybody. Welcome to our tabletop segment. My name is Tom, also known as Zathis, and joining me today is Nick, who you all know as Hexy, who actually helped us playtest our first stumble through of our tabletop project.
Precisely. Yeah, that was a fun night. Recording of that will forever live in infamy, to say the least.
And it will actually be shown after this segment, a few highlight reels.
Well, we got a couple of things to talk about. Let's look a little bit here about some of the background to the project. One thing I really was interested in, looking back, you've been working on D&D stuff for a while, even specifically having to do with Atherys, but you really started off in 3.5, correct?
I actually started with like 6th grade in a slumber party with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. We had a very brief but glorious end when I did not realize that sleep does not work on undead. Put the entire party to sleep, and we all died. After which I re-rolled the thief, and we had a lovely rest of the evening. But my primary bulk of D&D time has been with 3rd and 3.5, and then 5th edition, obviously, with the newer stuff. But back in like 2014-ish, I've been doing a bit of homebrew on my own, and decided to get a few of my friends in Atherys together. If anyone remembers Nick Crash and Lucifer, who's actually still with us. Satan now. Yeah, so both of them were actually in the original 3.5 game. We had about 3 or 4 sessions before scheduling because we had 2 people East Coast, 1 person all the way on California time.
And then 1 person in Europe, right?
Yeah, Satan's over on Dutch time. So the scheduling kind of, the classic bane of every D&D party. Overall, it was a fun little first experience. I still have all the work from that. And then when I found out that Yora Games was getting together and picking up Atherys and making it into like a headline first product, Anvil actually flagged me down and said, "Hey, we're doing this. I know you did this a while ago, and they want to do more than just Minecraft." So I kind of presented what I had from 3.5 to Taz. He took a bit of interest in it. He brought me on, introduced me to 2 of his coworkers, Alex and Josh.
Yep, the Katz brothers.
The Katz brothers, yeah.
Great guys.
And then we kind of just came up with a brief of, hey, we could convert this to 5th edition, and I kind of started going ham. So a lot of that early work was, at least in 3.5, was taking the heroes classes and converting them into their own D&D classes of like, well, what would this look like if we were playing it at a table, rather than just, saying, okay, we're going to have a fighter, but we're just an Atherys. It's more of a, okay, what does the Squire's Knight tree look like?
Interesting. Yeah, that was one of the nice things when we did our playtest. It was very much obviously like prepared and ready to roll. We didn't have to spend hours on character creation, which was nice. You had to spend hours on character creation without us,
which was a good way to test out on my end to see how it builds, even.
For sure, how it builds, and then for our end too, it makes it a lot easier because we have to take the content that you gave us and really work with it, right? To see, okay, does this feel fun? Does this feel stupid? No, I thought the playtest went really well. I really enjoyed it. And for me, I'm a veteran DM, right? So I've played for, I don't know, since like graduated high school, so like 5-6 years now. After high school, went to college, got into D&D, and I played 1 session of being in a party. And then the next session, our DM was sick, but everybody else was there, and so I ended up biting the bullet and becoming the DM, and I've been a forever DM since. I've DM'd like that specific group of friends from college for a couple of years, and that was a lot of fun. But after that, I ended up actually getting together a bunch of the mid-20s to 40-year-old bartenders that work at my family's business and getting them into their first game, sitting down during one of their, grab all the girls during one of their shifts and be like, hey, we're going to get a character creation going. We're going to get you, what do you want to play? You want to play an elf warlock? All right, you go get him, girl, right? And setting that up was a very fun experience in D&D, and that's kind of where I really get hooked on the game, so... Yeah, the Atherys playtest was definitely something that I think really scratched that Atherys itch while also being very much within the D&D, like kind of a more traditional D&D experience. It definitely fit them well together.
And that first stumble through was going to be really helpful on the creation end, because it's like you can do all the math in your head and theory crafting all you want, but until you actually sit at a table and see what people do to it, I basically told everyone, let's try to break some stuff.
Yep. And that's exactly kind of the thing where I come from too, where I had a group of all power gamers. So I'm a bit of a power gamer myself. And I don't say that in a mean way necessarily, but everybody comes from playing games like Diablo, Path of Exile kind of gamers, right? So everybody really wants to get as efficient of a build as possible. So a group like that playing Atherys D&D, a couple hours, you'd find a couple breaks in the armor for sure. But at the same time, it still felt like, especially with the way that the way that you were DMing and like kind of the more quick and to the point style of combat, not dragging everything out and making sure everybody gets every little thing right. If you forget part of your turn, it's past, like, oh, I could have done another action surge or whatever. No, it's your turn's over. Somebody else is going. And that style of really keeping the pace moving, still, it doesn't feel too slow. But I feel like even on some of the slower paced classes, like some of your mages and your defensive classes, might even feel like a little bit more engaging than they would in like even in the Minecraft sphere, which I thought was kind of a weird juxtaposition there.
So yeah, 5th edition has a lot of your action economy, it's called, versus other editions where it's a lot about your hooking up how much math can you do, and there's a lot of things. You still have your action stuff, but a lot of things is more about the mechanics and the math. While the 5th edition is more about the action economy and how do you make the most of your turn. So one thing I tried to do a lot with refocusing this was how do I give more people more things to do with their reactions, their bonus actions, and just feel like they've always have something to do in the combat field. It might be a case of it's a resource they need to spend to do it, but they are able to act at almost any point throughout it. And I even tried to do things like the Cutthroat has their classic despair ability from the Heroes team actually makes them vulnerable in a new condition I call Exposed, which actually lets you spend your reaction to basically gang up on an enemy that you've broken the weak point on, essentially. Another option so Jess was playing the cleric, and one of the things she was able to do was actually spend a resource pool to reduce people's damage as part of her reaction. So that even came into play. So it was a case of yes, you're playing a support class, but you're able to do things across the battlefield in other people's turns. Yeah.
That was something that was, I think, really what I was alluding to earlier is like speeding up the combat for especially the support classes. Because I feel like in classic D&D 5th edition, if you're sitting there and you're playing, your halfling cleric, and then all of a sudden you want to go ahead and you just use shillelagh and then just beat the crap out of whoever with a stick, that's really all you got. As you just do the one thing per turn, then use an action, and that's it. You just use your attack and shillelagh, and then you wait 5 minutes for everybody else to go through their turn, and then another 5 minutes for the DM to do his stuff, and you're half dead by the time you get back into your turn, and you're like, all right, what am I doing now? So I feel like having the ability to be involved in other people's turns, it goes out of just being something that the fighter can do kind of thing, and really part of just combat is a fluid, thing that you interact with rather than just waiting to interact.
Yeah, it's very living.
Basic D&D kind of misses that in a lot of spaces. It's kind of every class is really self-contained, and you can combo things together, like one person blinds them, one person attacks them, but comboing classes together is something that I think you see a lot more in traditional video games, but it's very hard to do. It would be, I think, very fun in board games and like D&D space.
I think that's also why because one of the initial ideas was, well, could we make each hero class its own archetype within an existing D&D class versus making our own classes to put out? And I think the end result was, well, if we start off with like your tier 2 as your base class, which was the general concept, then your tier 3s and 4s can become your various archetypes, and then you kind of have everything building off each other just like it does in our existing heroes trees, which is it kind of played well into our hand that's how Heroes is built.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's kind of one of the weird things about Heroes nowadays is that in Minecraft we've gone away from that because the player experience for that's kind of miserable. But in D&D, where you're playing against not really against anybody except for really the DM, and you're not punishing a player like, oh hey, everybody starts pretty much at vaguely the same level. Your party starts together, you level together. You're not sitting here as a tier 1 against a tier 4. It's a lot more of a space where that kind of gameplay loop makes a lot more sense.
And unlike Heroes, they can play with some things out of combat. So you got to experience a little bit of. I actually pulled this out of a. It's called the Hex Crawl. If you're familiar with that at all.
Yep,
so Hex Crawling, you basically have a bunch of hex grids. Your GM kind of lays out a bunch of terrain. It says, okay, this is what's here. You get to roll on a table and say, okay, every hex you're encountering this, and this on the way. It kind of makes your random encounters more. Or less random and more of a, you're going into this area, so you're going to encounter something along these lines. It's kind of like it's like making your medieval road dangerous again, sort of.
Yeah.
So I kind of condensed that a little bit when we played, just because it didn't want to do every hex. So my goal was to basically make it a, okay, so I'm going to roll on this table. We're going to give you 2 encounters based on the distance you're traveling. And then I basically just did a, what did we encounter? We encountered a wondrous sight was what it said on my little table. So I kind of made that as you're traveling through the Loga Caverns and you find a little hidden grotto, a forgotten garden, and you guys got a little bit of safe passage. And then my second one I rolled was a difficult climb. That's all it said. And I'm like, okay, so you've got a cliff, multiple stages up here. You think the cultists and the Tooth Wizards are up this way here. And then...
Jess goes into the rocks, and she just was like, I'm gonna just walk through the rocks. Don't mind me. But one of the really interesting things, and I know tangent here for you. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things that I really found with playing Atherys-based characters in D&D was taking all of the content that we've had for the last 10 years of all the dumb stuff that we've gotten up to in the Minecraft sphere. And there's just so many dumb memes and inside jokes and stuff. Like the Ithery girl boss character. Like, if you know who that is, you know who that is. I'm not going to say any names, but like it's funny. Like the Atherys history being replayed out as a D&D lobby, right? Like we can just relive all the dumb stuff we did as kids in a board game. Like it's just really, it's a weird experience for sure. One thing that I thought could even be more was, at least for my tastes, and again, this wouldn't make very good for the video, but the traveling segment, that I love hex crawls. I love that kind of stuff. And I think taking that, I would do a full 8-hour session of just hex crawling, no goal, just big old all right guys,
just explore.
You're here, you need to go exploring. You got nothing, you don't know any maps, you can see from the hill you're on, this is the direction that you want to go, towards the east, towards, there's an ocean over there somewhere, so just keep walking. And running into little villages and towns and farms along the way, and all these woods, and having to camp out like that. I think that's kind of a fun D&D experience.
That could even just be a fun way to present a hex troll in the world. Like if you just go back to Kseniath Anton and his journey around the world, he's charting the first maps of the world. That is the perfect setting for a hex troll.
It's something where I think it would be a very fun, I could spend, you could spend from January to December, a full year just exploring the world of Atherys and still not have found enough stuff. Oh God, now I want to play more D&D. Oh no.
Well, I mean, that's kind of good luck for you. I am hoping with some of the compilation and beta work we're doing, hopefully by the end of the year, we might be able to try to do some organized play with the community.
Oh, that would be really exciting. I would love to try that. I think as long as you have 1 or 2 experienced players in the group, you should be able to lead a group of noobs pretty well.
Yeah, I think even with a group of brand new players, that's kind of the half the fun is learning the game sometimes.
Yes. I think what we did with our first playtest internally with the team, I think that kind of level where you have a couple new folks, a couple old folks who at least know the basics of D&D, especially while you're still trying to figure out exactly how the gameplay feels, what feels good, what doesn't, adding more classes in. I think it's a very similar thing to the way video games progress as well. It's actually a very, very close relation from what I've seen. That's something that's kind of a weird parallel there. So on to a little bit more role play content. Now, I had mentioned this just a little bit, talking about how it feels like kind of the Atherys memes, but even for a non-Atherys, somebody that hasn't experienced Atherys for the last lifetime, frankly, somebody that might have been born after somebody that might have been born after Atherys was invented. Hurting my head.
We're old.
I feel old.
10 years.
God. Yeah. If somebody that's born less than 10 years ago that doesn't have 10 years of experience in Atherys and barely 10 years of experience in real life, how do you think that's going to work out for them? Is it going to be a lot of let's go spend 6 hours reading the wiki?
Well, I think a lot of it is kind of basically summarizing, what are the nations, what are the core characteristics that make each one up, and a lot of that is rather than doing D&D does your fantasy races. Obviously, because we have a world of all humanity, you don't really get that. So kind of took a little bit off of what they've done with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, with customizing your origin. So I basically have a chart where, this is your nation, these were the core ideals of the nation, this is what you might be raised under, and there's actually a whole list of, you can choose various features and traits from a list, so you got to kind of mix and match your own origin. There's like shared values that can be found across multiple civilizations, but also their own. It kind of mixes and matches their own core ideals, and then also there's your like what you get as like your bonus skill options, and just common things that everyone might have from that region. Say, your Seleucites, you could have, keep a dagger handy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that does add just enough depth where you have the creativity within your character creation, and it's not just, okay, well, I'm going to be an Ithri fighter. All right, that's it. And that's even, I think, a little bit more in-depth than what traditional D&D goes into, because the backgrounds in D&D are very lackluster, very, very generic, and it works for D&D specifically because the world is generic. It's just fantasy world, right? There's, unless you really, really get into it and really explore the core rule books and all the Eberron content and all these other like places that explain the way the world works, it's really just fantasy land, Whereas Atherys kind of has more of a developed universe that has specific rules, but they can still be broken for the sake of, creativity. There's boxes that you can work within unless you're creative enough to break out of them. So it gives more of like I don't want to say a barrier to entry, but more of a room to really like prove your creativity in a more of a unique way than just, yes, I would like to be a tiefling rogue with the folk hero backstory. Folk hero, why is that? Because
I needed
I'm
these
Robin
feats.
Hood. Because I wanted this feat and I'm Robin Hood, so thank you.
There's a huge expansion that everyone wants to try to put their world in a way that people can play it at home.
One thing I'm really looking forward to within this is just, I think, and you mentioned it already, the idea of doing this with the community. Even if this isn't necessarily something that is, the next critical role, right? We might not be the next D&D. I mean, I don't know. That's something that you never want to say no, but you never want to say that we need that to happen because you're going to disappoint yourself, right?
Right.
99.999 times out of 10,000, right? But at the same time, even just building this as something that we can use to have fun outside of Minecraft. Atherys is such a cool universe, and there's so much stuff to see that we just really can't show in Minecraft. And having attended, I know you were not directly part of like the rebuild in any high capacity, but attending a bunch of the rebuild meetings and looking through all the stuff that Taylor and the team are working on. Oh my God. The Atherys world is way cooler than we could ever even dream of showing in Minecraft.
It would be impossible to build like with all the additional like nations and exploration he's got going. No, like
it's insane.
That would take
mind blowing.
Yeah, it would basically be like a Horizon style size of project. Then multiply that by 3, so that'd be very hard to put in Minecraft.
There's only like 5 nations in Horizons. There's like how many nations that we have like written down and like
24,
explained all the lore.
Right now, the count.
Like total empires is like I think almost 30, isn't it, or like even more? But
there's the original empires and it breaks off a bit more. So I think we're at about 24. Yeah. I think last I looked, unless they expanded since I last looked.
The last number I heard, and I'm pretty sure this was a joke, was like, oh yeah, there's 200 empires in the world of Atherys, and I'm like, somebody get me an aspirin.
Well, I mean, you've got 7 city-states alone out of Arsaluk, so that's already 7 of the 200.
Oh my.
But yeah, even if we don't go to big streaming stats or anything, even looking at the Discord right now, there's about 200 people online-ish. If we got maybe 40 of those people a month to participate in an organized play over the course of a few GMs and a few games a week, and just get a lot of new stories to be told.
Yeah, I think those stories too, and that was something that we discussed when we were working on Aeons, is the world of Atherys can funnel into Aeons, but it doesn't really come out of it, right? The world of Aeons is, for all goods and purposes, self-contained, because it's not totally perfectly one-to-one with the new lore, and that's fine. Aeons is its own classic Minecraft experience, and trying to make it perfectly one-to-one with the universe that we're creating that's meant for the D&D content and novels and all sorts of other things, it's not going to be fun in the Minecraft, because it's going to be so much work to get it all in there. That would just be not that great of an experience, frankly.
There's no real way to interpret, hey, there's magic rings, and if you go to the correct point in space at the right time, you can charge your crystals to then use your magic. Like, even in D&D mechanics, that is hard to make fun. So, there's still some deviation from the lore in the story, but enough to make it still like this is our presentation of the story, just like Minecraft is. This is our presentation of the story, in a different medium.
The world of Atherys is larger and stranger than I think any of us have ever really given it credit for, and it's not just a generic fantasy world without any goblins.
And it's going to get weirder.
It's going to get a lot weirder and a lot wilder, and there's going to be a lot more to see, and I really look forward to being able to show that to the community, even to a small extent, just through the D&D content. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So once we get this a little bit more fleshed out and we can start bringing some more community members in it, I can already think of a list of about 5 or 6 people that would be dying to get in line to play D&D.
So didn't you catch some people playing D&D in the Minecraft game?
Yeah,
like sitting around the table in the Minecraft game playing D&D,
pretending to be D&D. Yeah, they were like role playing D&D. Yeah, they were just like, I'm like, you guys good? Oh my gosh, those are some.
So there's definitely a community who's excited for this stuff. We hope.
All right, Tom. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you about the D&D content we're planning. I'm really excited to get into it. Lots to look forward to, certainly, and a lot to look forward to in the near future here. Can't wait to see you DMing on some of the Atherys Discord channels. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I can't wait to see you breaking my stuff.
Hey, once Power Gamer, always a Power Gamer. All right, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Let's get into the next segment, okay?
All right. Onward and upward.
All right, thank you. Ooh, that must mean that there's stagnant water in that area or some shit. I don't know. I don't necessarily want to know. And I think we have to take Angrad's suggestion of going up the cliff, or we go around the water. What's your opinion?
I have a question.
Yes.
If I melt into the stone and go up to the top, or something.
That's a good use of a spell, and I'd say yes.
That is a good use of a spell, Jess. Big brain. I didn't even think of that.
Big brain energy. All right, so as you're kind of finishing your scale up the cliff, you can see all 3 trails terminating into a dark cave that thrusts into the mountain's rocky side. There's 2 ancient pillars that frame the cave, along with a worn and damaged wooden statue.
May I do a history check on these pillars? Oh, God. Girl boss doesn't know enough about. She's like, I don't know about this one.
I will say, I'm going to say, specifically because you, with your background of being from Ithro, you've gone to this Crosswise School of Navigation, you are able to identify that the toppled statue is a figurehead, not an actual statue, like what would be on the front of a ship.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What is a part of a boat doing up here?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Is there a boat in here? Guys, what if there's a lake underwater and we can go riding in a boat?
Ithri do love their boats. Yeah, so Angarad, you turned on the passageway. It looks to be fairly clear. You think you hear something beyond the planks. Just give me a stealth roll. You can feel like there's a malice coming towards you. Alright, so Annabella wins initiative.
Let me see my cracker.
Understood. So Annabella's eating. Angarad.
Yeah, I've got enough initiative where I think my ego is pretty high. Can I walk forward right to the other side and stand up?
10,
I think probably on 50. My right side of the doorway.
3 rotting humanoids dressed in tattered and ragged clothing. Their side-bloated bodies glisten from the slimy mixture of water and seaweed that hang from their forms. The spark of evil that brought them back from the ocean's depths drives them to seek the living so they may join them in their watery graves. Angarad, you're up. Alright, so we're going to switch you over to favorite terrain melee.
I'm going to use the spear. Yeah, so let's see. Doubles attack, I can.
5. So you're getting an extra +2 to hit. So that's going to do a total of 12 piercing damage to it. You hear the fire of gunpowder as the doorman fires offhanded at the opposite zombie. So it's going to approach the path of least resistance and try to make a swipe towards the doorman. Ooh.
Oh.
That hurt.
Hey, can I give him like divine protection?
Yes. How many divine protection do you want to spend? You have 3 available.
I want to spend 1.
Roll me a d4. 1 damage reduced.
Wow.
Nice.
I tried to save you.
I appreciate it.
Callan, you're up. Okay, so the 26 definitely is going to hit it. Additionally, as the radiant damage strikes into it, so like your holy light just kind of burns it. Additionally, this one is glowing, so the next attack against it has advantage. Garrison, as a reaction, you spend points to give an AC bonus of equal size to a ally. Dorman, you're up.
Help.
I need to roll again because I didn't
Yeah, you're still in the drowning aura.
roll a 12. That does not save. We'll use another adrenaline point. I'm at level 2 exhaustion.
I'm just gonna straight up use short sword and then another short sword again.
You know, it's hilarious. It's a natural 1, but it still technically would hit. +4.
It nearly slips out of his hand, but it still like hits the thing in the face.
Yeah,
Pulls it
I
right
like
back
that.
out of the thing face.
Especially because math-wise, that's all that you only needed 9 points of damage. So like the first one slashes. Second one, you lose grip on your sword, but it flies right into its face and deals 3 piercing damage, exactly enough to kill it.
And then you go up and pick it out of its face. You crit failed to get a finishing move. Holy shit, your ego is huge right now, Slice to tell.
All right, Dorman, you are up.
God save. Let's go.
Oh,
Adrenaline.
third level of exhaustion.
I used adrenaline.
Okay, this time
Oh, hey, you finally did it.
you finally shrug off the drowning aura.
Yeah, exhaustion's no joke. We are slashing at the drowned that is standing, and we are going to shoot the drowned that is next.
Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna just say your gun misfires on the natural 1. The good news is, though, 17 points of damage is pretty harmful to that guy, and it refreshed the wound counter. The bad news is, your offhand, you suddenly get the flintlock misfire, so the ballistic shoots up your arm a little bit with 3 points of ballistic damage to yourself.
Woo! That's it. KS. I just KS it from the doorman.
I offer you
Goes
some
reaching
loss
out
in
for
these
the
trying times.
I like as the thing goes out to reach for the doorman and it misses. I'm just like,
Not today.